This is Mac OS Ken.
COVID-19 and the Taiwanese supply chain, what we might see at WWDC, and a sci-fi epic from CW Longbottom. It is Monday, the 7th of June, 2021. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by the Business Movers podcast from Wondery. Catch up now on Business Movers Season 5, The Enlightenment of Steve Jobs. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/MacOSCan. Here in the States, we keep talking about things getting back to normal after wrestling for over a year with COVID-19. While we may be able to go to restaurants or movies even, the world is not getting back to normal. Nikkei ran a piece over the weekend covering yet another disruption in the global supply chain due to COVID-19. According to that, King Yuan Electronics in Taiwan, identified by Nikkei as the world's leading chip testing service provider, shut down 2 of its plants over the weekend. You may wonder why shutting down a testing site of which most of us have never heard leads to a disruption. I found an unrelated news release from Samsung that explains the packaging and testing process for semiconductors. According to that release, semiconductor packaging involves enclosing integrated circuits in a form factor that can fit into a specific device. Those squares you see with A14 or M1 etched on them, that would be the package, if I'm reading the release correctly. Once the packaging process is complete, Samsung says the company has to determine if the package works properly. So it's time to move to the last stage, the package test, in which the packaged semiconductor goes through the final quality assurance procedures. Now, a bit of internet sleuthing leads me to understand that that is what King Yuan Electronics does, and what it had to stop doing at 2 of its plants over the weekend. Who can't take a weekend off? King Yuan Electronics, it seems, not when the globe is running short on semiconductors. According to the Nikkei piece, King Yuan Electronics production suspension could aggravate the global chip shortage, which has already hit a swath of players from automobile makers to consumer electronics giants. MediaTek, the world's leading mobile chip developer and rival of Qualcomm, said on Friday evening that the temporary suspension at King Yuan will affect the company's revenue in June, adding that it is in close communication with the testing supplier in hopes of minimizing the impact. MediaTek is in Apple's supply chain, though not in a way that will affect most Apple fans. They supply components for Beats headphones through a partnership that began just a few months ago. Bigger picture, though, the story illustrates how tight the whole semiconductor shortage is. MediaTek is in close communication with King Yuan Electronics in hopes of minimizing the impact of King Yuan being down for 48 hours. That is how tight this whole thing is. Also, fingers crossed it's only 48 hours. According to Nikkei, King Yuan Electronics confirmed that 77 employees, including 73 migrant workers, mostly from the Philippines, have contracted the coronavirus at its biggest manufacturing site as of Friday. The number could rise as the company is testing all its 7,300 employees with government help. And still, you may wonder why we're addressing this here. Because crazy thing about COVID-19, it tends to spread. Apple chip supplier TSMC has factories in Taiwan. That's what the T in TSMC stands for. MacBook maker Quanta Computer, iPad maker Compal Electronics, iPhone supplier Pegatron. They have all reported cases of COVID-19. So far, says Nikkei, these cases have not affected production at these companies, which are all running at full capacity to address unprecedented global demand. That said, at least one Apple supplier worries that that can't last. They told Nikkei, if the majority of the population in Taiwan do not receive COVID vaccines soon, I fear it is only a matter of time until more and more companies will be forced to halt production due to the spread of the virus. The piece says only about 500,000 of Taiwan's 23.5 million people have gotten their first dose of the vaccine. There is help on the way, though. A piece published Sunday on Apple Insider had a group of U.S. senators visiting Taipei, pledging 750,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccine. Japan has pledged 1.24 million as well. That's both countries making a divot in the need, if not an actual dent. So today is the thing, the kickoff of Worldwide Developers Conference 2021. There is little point in lots of speculation since the whole thing starts in 10 hours or less, based on when you hear this. Still, it is the event of the day. Might as well go over some expectations. One might expect Apple to mention how many devices are running the latest versions of a couple of operating systems. For iOS, it is 85% of all active iPhones and 90% of all iPhones made in the last 4 years. Mac Rumors had Apple posting those numbers to its developer page on Friday. Now, perhaps speaking to how much longer iPads linger, the spread is greater for Apple's tablet. While 91% of iPads made in the last 4 years are running iPadOS 14, only 79% of all active iPads do so. As with iPhones, the piece points out, iPads in the all devices category may not be able to run iPadOS 14. I know there are at least 2 in this house that can't make that jump, hence my comment about how much longer iPads linger. Expect some of the usual from the Cupertino company today. That's how it comes to be called the usual. I told you last week of Wedbush analyst Daniel Ives' assertion that users' privacy and security will be central themes. That expectation was reiterated in a piece on Friday from Investors Business Daily. That same piece points to big changes expected for the Cupertino company's Messages app, while a piece from Bloomberg says anticipated changes might make the Messages app more of a social network. A note from Loup Ventures makes it sound like it is already that thing, referring to Messages as a super app and one of the most powerful elements of the Apple ecosystem. The Loup Ventures note says over the past few years, we've observed Messages increasingly being used as a combination of WhatsApp, Slack, and Venmo, thanks to the previous 2 major iOS updates that brought more personalization and organization to individual group chats, along with the ability for peer-to-peer payments with Apple Cash. Despite the heap of praise, the firm still expects changes for Messages. Perhaps the least surprising expectation comes from CNET. Apple spent the last year under attack, says a pre-WWDC headline. The headline goes on to predict it'll use WWDC to rally the troops. Gee, you think? Apple Music may flip the switch on spatial audio today. Sort of strange to double up on events, or triple up if you count this afternoon's platform State of the Union, and yet Apple appears to be doing just that. According to a number of sites, including Cult of Mac, Apple Music is streaming a presentation called Introducing Spatial Audio today. That'll stream at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, likely just minutes past the end of the WWDC keynote. Describing the tech in the past, VP of Apple Music and Beats Oliver Schusser said, "Listening to a song in Dolby Atmos is like magic. The music comes from all around you and sounds incredible." Sounds like it sounds cool. Not every track in Apple Music will support it, though, but thousands will, according to the company. More on that later today. One last prediction for the day. Sort of a greatest hit at this point. Mac Rumors has another analyst calling for a MacBook of some sort powered by Apple Silicon. On Friday, Morgan Stanley analyst Katie Huberty issued a note to clients laying out her case. In the last 12 months, wrote Huberty, Apple has introduced not only new Macs, MacBook Air, MacBook Pro 13-inch, and Mac Mini with the M1, but also a high-end 12.9-inch iPad Pro with the M1 chip. We expect this momentum to continue into WWDC 2021, and based on our checks, we believe it's likely Apple launches a new MacBook featuring in-house designed silicon. It's possible that what's introduced will be an M2, a follow-on to the Apple Silicon shipped so far. If so, she thinks shipments will start in the second half of the year. Of course, that starts in about 3 weeks, so you could pretty much say any time. This will be my last chance to remind you, so please let me remind you. The WWDC Keynote is today, Monday the 7th of June at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, corresponding times in other corners of the globe. You can catch it on YouTube, you can catch it on Apple's site, you can catch it as a podcast later, and of course, we will likely be talking about it or aspects of it for the rest of this week. More news in a moment. But first, a word from the Business Movers podcast from Wondery. 10 years ago, the last time Steve Jobs addressed WWDC was 10 years ago. That makes now a fitting time to check out the new season of Business Movers, taking a look this season at the legendary and controversial career of Steve Jobs. We know the stories about his parents' garage. We know about how he changed the world with the iPhone. But points on a timeline don't really tell a story. For that, there's the Enlightenment of Steve Jobs, Season 5 of the Business Movers podcast from Wondery. I like the style of what I've heard so far. It's not just a recitation of facts. The Enlightenment of Steve Jobs tells the story of Jobs' trajectory, from the headstrong 30-year-old chased out of the company he co-founded to an executive ready to pull Apple back from the brink. It's a good bit of storytelling, and you can hear it now. Listen to Business Movers, The Enlightenment of Steve Jobs on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or you can listen 1 week early and ad-free by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app. Wondery. Feel the story. Let us end the day, as we often do, with news of Apple TV+. Apple's Peanuts partnership keeps paying off. The Mac Observer has word of a new documentary and a promo to go along with it. Who Are You, Charlie Brown? Will celebrate Charlie Brown, Snoopy, and all the Peanuts gang, along with the group's creator, Charles M. Schulz. Filmmaker sat down with a number of celebrities to talk over Schulz's work, including Drew Barrymore, Al Roker, Billie Jean King, Ira Glass, and a host of others. Schulz's widow, Jean, is also featured, along with footage of the artist himself through various stages of his career. Now, the Peanuts partnership isn't the only one bearing fruit. The film was produced by Imagine Documentaries. That's the Ron Howard, Brian Grazer imprint with which Apple did a deal in early 2019. Who Are You, Charlie Brown hits Apple TV Plus on Friday, the 25th of June. Between now and then, you can catch a trailer for the doc on YouTube. While the character Ted Lasso may never quit, work does sometimes take a break. iMore says filming on Season 2 of the surprise comedy hit has wrapped. As the site points out, that is cutting it pretty close. Season 2 of Ted Lasso is set to premiere on Apple TV Plus on the 23rd of June. And now the race is on between watching Ted Lasso and having merch to wear while watching Ted Lasso. Showrunner Bill Lawrence says gear should make it to viewers by the time Season 2 premieres. 9 to 5 Mac had Lawrence appearing last week on the podcast Fake Doctors, Real Friends. That podcast features actors from the early 2000s comedy Scrubs, which Lawrence also produced. Talking of Ted Lasso merch, Lawrence said initial stuff will go on sale in mid to late June. If you're looking for a team jersey, though, that'll be a bit longer. Lawrence said Premier League official name kits will come out in September, according to the report. I will say TeePublic has some really horrible third-party Ted Lasso t-shirts, and a couple of really great ones. I have one of the great ones, because yes, I am that kind of fan. Go Richmond. I like my Ted Lasso shirt because it puts me in universe. Things like that make me super excited, which is why I am super excited to tell you about a couple of freebies from the Cupertino Company. If you saw this weekend's Mythic Quest, you know the heartbreaking tale of the C.W. Longbottom novella, Tears of the Anaren. Well, of course, they have written the novella and produced an audiobook to go along with it. Narrated by show creator Rob McElhenney and C.W. Longbottom himself, F. Murray Abraham, a piece from Apple Insider says both the audiobook and the novella are free. They are both available now through Apple Books. But that's not all. I'm not sure how people are supposed to find out about things like these, but Tears of the Anaren is just the latest MQ tie-in let loose by creators. Earlier this season, according to the same Apple Insider piece, show creators shared the pitch deck for Grouchy Goat, available as a Keynote presentation, of course. And last year, they released a browser-based version of Dark Quiet Death. That is the video game at the center of one of the greatest half hours of television I've seen in years at the very least. If you've let Mythic Quest into your world, they are letting you into theirs. Fingers crossed for more of the same. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and sponsored by the Business Movers podcast from Wondery. Catch Business Movers Season 5, The Enlightenment of Steve Jobs, on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or listen a week early and ad-free through Wondery Plus in the Wondery app. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macosken. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. Info at macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Enjoy the keynote, everybody. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.